Welcome to the second instructional video of Riyadh Colleges of Dentistry and Pharmacy e-learning. The task of this video is to teach you how to make an online e-exam for your students. Now, assuming that you watched the first instructional video, you've already created your question banks and they are ready to be used to create a first assessment, a second assessment, a final exam, or even a quiz. So the first step to do so, you'll have to enter the address in the browser of any computer or laptop or iPad on the college network or system. The second step will be to enter your username and password that was provided to you through email by the IT department. Once you have logged in, you'll come to a page called My Courses. Now, in the My Courses page, you have to again verify that your name is correctly listed as the teacher of all your courses, and all your courses are listed if you have more than one. Today, for the purposes of this instructional video, I will be creating a second assessment exam for English 140 Medical Terminology 2, which is my course. You can go ahead and follow these same basic steps to create a first assessment, a second assessment, a final exam, or even a quiz for as many courses as you're teaching. So I'll go ahead and open my course. Once I've opened my course, I proceed to a page that has topics listed. Now, this is my syllabus page, and by default I'd like to remind you that the administration or the IT department has only mentioned 2 topics for every course. You can go ahead and add to these and add details to the topics of your syllabus. I will be creating an instructional video to teach you how to do so. But today, for the purposes of this video, I'll be showing you how to make an exam using my question bank. Now, just to show you, prior to this video, I've added some questions to my question bank to use as an example in the 3 categories we created in the last video. So I've entered 3 simple questions, 2 moderate questions, and 1 complex or challenging question. So I'll be using these 6 questions that I've entered prior to this video today to create a mock second assessment. Now let me return to my course, English 140. Now that I'm back at the syllabus page, the first step to creating an e-exam is to go to this button on the top right that says Turn Editing On and select it. Now that I have turned editing on, I have a lot of new options for activities or resources. Now I'm going to select any one of my topics. It doesn't matter. Later, once you have entered your topics and organized them, you'll select a topic relevant to your exam. But I'll just choose topic 1 for now and add an activity or resource. And I will choose this button. Now that I've selected add an activity or resource, whether it be a first assessment or a second assessment or a final exam, I will choose the make a quiz option. Now, this doesn't actually mean that I will be making a quiz. I have to select this option to create a quiz or an assessment exam. The style of it will be like a quiz. And I will add. Now I've come to the page called Adding a New Quiz to Topic 1. Topic 1, just as an example, you'll choose a topic that's relevant to your assessment or quiz or final exam. Now in the name field, I will enter Second Assessment, since I'm creating a second assessment for my course. Now you'll see the next field is Introduction. In Introduction, I can enter any additional information I'd like to show on the first page of my second assessment exam. My course name, English 140 and Medical Terminology 2, will already show. The name of the course director will also already show. So any additional information I'd like to add for the benefit of the student. For example, there's only 1 correct answer per question. Maybe I'd like to remind them of that. or I'd like to wish them luck on their exam. I can go ahead and add as much information as I'd like, for example, the topics included or the duration of the exam. Now, once I've entered what I'd like the students to see as the introduction of the exam, the next option is timing. Now, if the timing has not been provided to you through the administration at the time that you create your exam, you can choose not to enable this yet and come back later and edit this. But if I know, for example, when and what time my exam will be, I can enable these options. Open the quiz at, for example, the 12th of April, 2013, and maybe my exam is 1 hour long, so from 8 a.m. until 9 a.m. on the same date. In this way, I've set the date and the time of my exam. Now again, to re-verify, I will enable the time limit of my exam and put it in as 1 hour. Now, as you know, in the college, our assessments are 1 hour long and our final exams are 2 hours long. So if I was entering a final exam, I would make this 8 to 10 and I would put 2 hours in the time limit area. Now, when the time expires, you should leave this default option. Attempts must be submitted before time expires or they are not counted. This is by default already provided for you, and this is the correct option. Now we'll proceed to the next fields, which are about the grade. Now the grade by default is uncategorized, which is correct. Attempts allowed should be only 1. There should only be 1 attempt allowed. The grading method will then be deselected, which is the correct option. So attempts allowed, make sure to change this to 1. Okay, now for the layout of your exam, you can play with the layout, and this is to the discretion of every course director, as you would like it. Now in English 140, my questions aren't very long, so I wouldn't like each page to only have 1 question. I'd like maybe 3 questions, 4 questions on each page. Now you have all these options laid out for you. You can have up to 50 questions on a page based on how long your questions are, if you have images or diagrams. The next step is to choose the navigation method. The navigation method should be free. You want the student to be able to go back and forth between the questions and review questions that they've already answered. The question behavior should be shuffled. Yes. Now, this won't affect your settings when you were setting your question in the question bank. If you chose not to shuffle the options of one of your questions that were none of the above or all of the above, this will not affect that question. But in general, your questions will be shuffled. Now this is the most important field, review options. Do you want the students to immediately after the exam be able to see their marks or not? As of yet, the administration has not given us any instructions to give the marks immediately on the screen after the student has submitted their exam. So you have to go ahead and deselect all these options so the student will not be able to see their marks immediately after the exam. Now, if later the administration does advise us or instruct us to show the marks during the exam or immediately after the exam, you'll have to come back and edit your exam and choose just marks. This will then allow the student to see their marks immediately once they've submitted the last question on the exam and the time has elapsed. But for now, we will deselect this option. The rest of the fields on display are already by default correct. The most important field, and the one I'd like to stress in this instructional video, is the extra restrictions on attempts. Now, we'd like to make sure the student only takes this exam once, and the correct student is taking the correct exam. The only way to ensure that is to create or require a password to start this exam. I'm going to set a password now, and I'll unmask it for you so you can see. We'll make the password English 1. Now this password, we'd like to encourage you to require a password and enter a password here on the extra restrictions on attempts, anything short and memorable for you. And do not provide the students with this password until the day of the exam, when they've arrived, when they've entered the exam hall and they're sitting on their computers and they've logged in. Then you will provide the students with this required password for extra security purposes. Now that we're complete, we've completed all the fields, we've created a shell for our second assessment exam, and now we will save and display this exam. Okay, now I've created a shell or an outline for my second assessment exam. Remember, I entered some information in the introduction field. There's only one correct answer per question, and good luck. This shows up on the first page of my second assessment. Attempts allowed are 1. The quiz will not be available until this date, which I set, 8 a.m. To attempt this quiz, you need to know the quiz password, and the time limit is 1 hour. So now I've created the shell for my second assessment. Now it's ready for me to add questions from my questions bank to this second assessment. How do I do that? I will go to Edit Quiz. Now I've come to the page called Editing Quiz Second Assessment. Now I can add questions to my second assessment. How will I do that? I'll go to my question bank contents. For example, I'd like to add all 3 of my simple questions. Of course, you'll have more than 3. And here are my 3 questions that I entered already in the simple category. Now I can choose to select all of them one by one based on what I'd like, or I can tick this box that will mark all of them and add them to my quiz, which is my second assessment. And now my 3 simple questions have been added. I'd like to go ahead and add my 2 moderate questions, add to quiz, and lastly I'll be adding my 1 complex question and adding it to my quiz. Now if you remember, I selected the option to show 3 questions per page, so it's already dividing up my questions per page. And these are the 6 questions, the 3 simple, the 2 moderate, and the 1 complex I've added. Now, of course, in your first assessment and second assessment and final exam, you'll either have 40 to 60 questions, and you can go ahead and follow these same instructions and these same simple steps to add your 40 to 60 questions for your assessments. Now, the program itself already calculates my total marks. Now, since each question was 0.5, and I have 6 questions, my quiz or my assessment will be marked out of 3. Now my quiz or my second assessment is ready, and I will save it. Now that it's saved, I can go back to my second assessment, and it's ready to attempt, and I can preview my second assessment now. In the preview option, I can start an attempt and actually see what my students will see when they take the exam. Now when they take the exam, they'll be prompted to enter the quiz password, which was English 1, and continue. Now this is the preview of my quiz or my second assessment, but if this were a real attempt, I would be blocked because this quiz is not currently available because of the date I listed. Now the first question was, how do you spell the capital of Riyadh? I'm just going to do 1 mock attempt. If you remember, we created a question about what is the capital of Saudi Arabia, and we added a picture. And here's my 3rd question. And I'd like you to notice how the questions have been shuffled by the program already. Now I'm going to proceed to the next page, as I selected that 3 questions show per page. Here's my second page. And now I've finished the 6 questions on my second assessment. My answers have been saved, and now I can submit at all and finish. Now I've finished my exam and no more attempts are allowed, and I can return back to the course. In this way, I've previewed my exam and ensured that the questions have been shuffled and they're like I want the student to see. Now when I return to this page, my editing options are still on and my quiz or my second assessment has been entered here on the syllabus page. Now I'd like to draw your attention to a couple of features. The first one is this gear. Now if I'd like to update something about my exam or change something about my exam, for example the date or the time has been changed or has now come through the administration and I'd like to set it, I can click on this update option to update any part of my second assessment that I've already created. For example, if the date or time of the exam has been changed, I can go down and make these changes from the timing and save them. Or, as we mentioned, if the administration decides now to show the marks immediately to the students, I can go ahead and make those changes and save them again through the update option. The last valuable feature I'd like to show to you is a very interesting button here that's shaped like an eye. It's called Hide. Now, as a course director, I may put thousands and thousands of questions in my question bank and already know what topics are included in my first assessment, second assessment, final exam, and even my quizzes. So from the beginning of the semester, I may like to create my first assessment, second assessment, and final exam in advance, but I don't want my students to know that they're available on the network. So I can choose to create them and hide them. When I have hidden my exam, for example, I've just hidden my second assessment, now only I, as the administrator of my course, can see that there is a second assessment exam on the network. Prior to my exam or closer to my exam, when I'd like it to be displayed to the students, I can come back and log in and choose to show the exam. And now the students can see that there's a second assessment available. When I'm done making my changes and adding all my exams, I can turn editing off. And now my second assessment is on the e-learning website of the college, ready to be attempted by the students. I hope this was clear to you and the steps were easy to follow. As one last reminder from the administration, for any first, second assessment or final exam, we'd like to remind you to include 60% of your questions simple, 25% moderate, and 15% complex or challenging questions. I'll repeat, 60% simple, 25% moderate, and 15% complex or challenging questions for any first, second assessment, or final exam. The quizzes are up to your discretion. I hope this video was easy to follow, and I will be providing you with other videos on how to edit your syllabus. If you have any questions about creating an online exam for your course, please refer to the IT department for further assistance. Thank you.